Good evening, and welcome to a special edition of Socrates Garrett Live. We're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South, Ground Zero, Mississippi, a place where I like to say the air just a little bit cleaner and the grass is just a little bit greener. Now, this month, we're paying attention to Black history. We're talking about Black history all month long during the month of February. Carter G. Woodson began the Black History program way back in the day. So we're going to be talking about a few things as it relates to Black history. Also, we want to make note that today the mayor of the great city of Jackson held a press conference announcing that the new police chief is in town. She and her family were in attendance at the press conference, and there will be a reception for them later on this evening at the convention center. We want to welcome her to Jackson, Mississippi, and we pray that she will be able to make a big difference in this city. I noticed also on the press conference there was the sheriff of Hinds County, Tyree Jones, and the chief of the Capitol Police, Bo Luckett. They were all in attendance, and the background was filled with dignitaries from all walks of life. And so she is garnering tremendous support as she embarks upon this new assignment. And we hope that the Jackson City Council will confirm her with a unanimous vote, a vote of confidence that would bode well for someone taking on this Herculean challenge of reducing crime and making the citizens of Jackson feel safe. So congratulations again. Now we're going to talk a little bit about Black history, and we're going to talk a little bit about fallen heroes, which is why I'm really doing this special today, because it just absolutely breaks my heart. It's devastating to learn that Jesse Jackson passed away today. Jesse Jackson, an icon in the Black community, a legend in the development of Black America and a freedom fighter that he was. You know, Jesse was a friend of mine. He and I first met in 1975 when I was a young salesperson for Xerox Corporation. We started an organization called Minorities United in the Southern Region. Minorities United in the Southern Region. That's where all of the minorities in anywhere in the South that were working for Xerox Corporation, we gathered in Memphis, Tennessee, and Jesse Jackson was our guest speaker for the evening. Now, I was president of the local branch of MUSR here in Jackson, Mississippi. So I had an opportunity to speak to Reverend Jackson and to give him some advice. And my advice was to him that we were, as an organization, taking on a giant in Xerox Corporation, and that we certainly didn't want to burn bridges that we had to come back across later on. And Jesse said, I understand. And so when he began speaking at the podium, he said, I want to let Mr. Garrett, Mr. Socrates Garrett, know that you can't hide, that wherever you are, that they know where you are, they know what you're saying, what you're thinking, and what you're doing. So you can't hide. So I'm going to speak the truth to power. And he went on to do that. I was somewhat embarrassed that he called me out that way, but you know, it was the right thing for him to do. I grew up a little bit that day. So I knew Jesse, and in 1997, he came to Jackson, Mississippi. Once again, I have great photo shots with him, and I always admired Jesse for the champion that he was. I admired his demeanor, his charisma, his ability to take the heat. And so, you know, a hero has fallen. Now, this is Black History Month. And so we have a lot of fallen heroes. And I'm going to go through a few names this evening that I want you to think about and remember the tremendous contribution that they made to America, not just Black America, but to America. But before we do that, we're going to stop and take a commercial break and honor our sponsors that are bringing you this show this evening. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Garrett Wholesale Tires and Trucking Company. We hit the ground running and leave the rest behind. Get moving with Garrett today. At Garrett Tire and Truck Company, we carry the top tire brands in the industry. Truck tires, commercial tires, passenger tires, all at wholesale prices. Whether you run one vehicle or an entire fleet, we keep you rolling longer with durability, performance, and unbeatable value. Why pay retail when you can buy wholesale? Garrett Wholesale Tires and Trucking Company. Top brands, wholesale prices, built for the road.
We are back. I thank the sponsors because they give us the fuel that's necessary to bring you like this and other great programs that we believe digital network. Now, if you're on Facebook, we want you to share this program with your friends and family, send us stars, subscribe to our channel. If you're watching us on YouTube, do exactly the same thing. Subscribe, support us. Take a look at the Cash App signs that are flashing below on our lower thirds from time to time. We need your support. Do what you can to support us here in Mississippi as we try and cover the issues that are happening in the South that those of you in the rest of the world may not be aware of. Now, you're certainly aware of Jesse Jackson, but we're going to talk a little bit more about Jesse Jackson, but others other than Jackson. We're going to talk a little bit about fallen heroes, and we're going to talk about African Americans. You see, this is Black History Month. It's African American History Month. And so when I look at the term African American, I know that it has two parts to it. And so I want to deal with each part just briefly. So African history, we have to go back and understand the tremendous sacrifice that was made by Africans during the transatlantic slave trade deal and before. We have to remember all of the countries, Portugal, Spain, Britain, US, Turkey, all of the countries that were involved in slave trade and the tremendous sacrifice that Africans paid just to be robbed and broken away from their families, loaded into crowded ships, and brought into America to fuel the economy. We have to remember that the sacrifice that was made, and a young lady wrote in a tree in Africa, she said, "We will never stop looking for you." Now that meant that she would never stop looking for the children that were taken from that continent and brought here to America. And so we pay homage to all of the African ancestors during Black History Month and beyond for the tremendous sacrifice that they've made. And we're going to come back and talk about that a little bit in today's context and what I see happening in that continent today. But I just want to remind you about some of our fallen heroes. We got to stop and we got to, first of all, since I was talking about Africa, let's talk about Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader from Burkina Faso that was assassinated. His dream lives on with Ibrahim Traoré, there in Burkina Faso today. And there are marvelous, wonderful things occurring in the continent of Africa today that makes me extremely proud. It's not a shithole country as some might describe it, but it is a continent that has more resources, more natural resources than anywhere else in the world. We're talking about golds and diamonds and cobalt. We're talking about land. We're talking about beachfront properties, shores, the largest continent of all continents. And so we talked about the tremendous sacrifice. We talk about the progress, and we talk about the things that we see happening there today. On our African side, on American history side, we all know my hero is none other than Marcus, Marcus Garvey. Marcus, for me as a business person, you see, I came through this thing a little different than most. My focus has always been on economic empowerment for those that have been traditionally left behind. Economic empowerment. And so as I take a look at my heroes, then they become those that were champions of economic empowerment. And Marcus Garvey was certainly that. And Reginald Lewis or Beatrice Foote was certainly that. These are two giants in the industry. They gave their life to the cause and were taken out much too early. The leaders die young, and that's a shame. But those were my heroes. But then when I come to American history and I bring up Martin Luther King, now everybody knows Dr. King. Everybody knows Martin Luther King, but many of you may not know that the gentleman was only 33 years old when he was assassinated. He didn't have time to fulfill his potential because he was taken out and having been assassinated here in America. Now, we're going to talk about the tragedy, but we're going to talk about later on the tremendous contributions that we made and the progress that we made in making this world and this country a better place. But we have to talk about Malcolm X. We talked about Martin, we talked about Malcolm X. Malcolm X also was 33 years old. Imagine that. There's another gentleman that we know that was also 33 years old. I'll let you figure out who that was later on. And so Malcolm was taken from us. Malcolm had enjoyed a trip to Africa, and his views seemed to have changed, and it seemed to have caused him some problem in the Nation of Islam. So we won't get into that too deep, but that's a point for us to develop later on. Because I'm not sure if we know today who killed Malcolm. I don't think we know. But anyway, we'll talk about that. And then there was another gentleman in Mississippi history. All of these gentlemen are affiliated with Mississippi, having had roots and ties to the motherland, Mississippi, ground zero. But there was another gentleman, Medgar Evers, a young Black man that gave his life fighting for others, for the freedom and the rights of others. Medgar was about 37 years old. So you get the pattern here of commitment and contribution has a tremendous price to it. There's a tremendous cost to step out front and be the kind of leader that is required during turbulent times. Most of the times, your life is cut short. And there were a host of other individuals that I won't try to name today that were listed in the Sovereignty Commission in Mississippi. And these are the individuals that the Southern leadership has said, we have to watch these Negroes and know where they are at all times and what they're doing and who they're talking to, etc. I know for a fact that my father, W.E. Garrett, was listed in the Sovereignty Commission as one of those Negroes that we have to keep our eyes on. And so we experienced a lot of heartbreak coming up in Mississippi with crosses being burned in the yard, but it didn't deter him. He was committed to try and make a difference in the lives of his folk in his community. And so, the list of those kinds of individuals go on and on and on. But then we have to get to Vernon Damer down in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, who was gunned down and gave his life trying to register Black folks to vote, trying to make a difference in Mississippi, and was gunned down doing so, and the house set on fire, and the children and the wives barely escaped. And so we had those kind of things going on in Mississippi. And then I'll bring you up to Emmett Till in Money, Mississippi, a 14-year-old Black boy that allegedly whistled at a white woman and was taken out of the bedroom, beat and put a fan around his neck and drowned in the river. So we've had those kind of things. But through it all, we continue to fight to love our fellow man. There is more love in the African American community for all ethnic groups than in any other race. There are very, very few African Americans that just hate any other ethnic group. I can't hardly ever run into one that says that or feels that way. And so, we have to get over that. But we recognize the contributions of the Arkansas Nine that did the sit-in over in Arkansas after they weren't allowed to go to the library. And Reverend Jesse Jackson was a part of that group. And that's where he got involved and began in this civil rights movement that led him to places that we never dreamed he would go. Born in North Carolina, he is an individual that had risen to heights that we had dare not seen. Now, I remember that Shirley Chisholm made a run for president of the United States, but Shirley was an individual that I didn't know much about. I mean, I appreciate the contribution that she made and the efforts that she put forth, but Jesse was a hero to me. Jesse was someone that was all over America saying, keep hope alive. And all of our leaders were attempted to be tarnished. And Jesse with a child out of wedlock, you want to say Martin had a girlfriend. All this is foolishness. It's just Black excellence is all it really was and is today, Black excellence. And so, the history continues. Now, Black folk, we made so many contributions to America. We created things. We have more patents. We dominate in the world of entertainment. We dominate in the world of sports. Mississippi has produced more African-American leaders than any other state that we can think of. When I was in Los Angeles, California, in 1968, 69, Tom Bradley was the mayor of LA. He was from Mississippi. When I think about the contributions that Robert Johnson made in music, when I think about the Jet magazine that came out of Mississippi, when I think about Radio One and TV One with the granddaughter of the great Lawrence Jones out of Mississippi, when I think about all of the contributions that we have made to this society, to make it a better place. And I think about all of the difficulties, the tragedy that we've had, yet to rise above it all, as Maya Angelou says, still we rise, and we rise today. Now, I'm going to continue this for just a moment longer, but once again, I need to pause here and give our sponsors the opportunity to share their products for goods and service with you. Stay tuned. I'll be right back.
Garrett Wholesale Tires and Trucking Company. We hit the ground running and leave the rest behind. Get moving with Garrett today. At Garrett Tire and Truck Company, we carry the top tire brands in the industry. Truck tires, commercial tires, passenger tires, all at wholesale prices. Whether you run one vehicle or an entire fleet, we keep you rolling longer with durability, performance, and unbeatable value. Why pay retail when you can buy wholesale? Garrett Wholesale Tires and Trucking Company. Top brands, wholesale prices, built for the road.
we're back. This is our final segment and a very brief segment for us here this evening. We have to get down to the convention center to welcome the new candidate for police chief, a young Black woman with Mississippi ties, Mississippi roots, has been selected by the mayor after an exhaustive search to become the top cop in Jackson, Mississippi. Now, Jackson, Mississippi has an interesting dynamic when it comes to its police department. Well, you see, we have two police departments running in our city, operating in our city. One is called the Capitol Police of Jackson, and one is called the Jackson Police of Jackson. Now, they have two separate directives. And the Capitol Police of Jackson does not report to the mayor of the city of Jackson, but reports directly to a police chief of the capital city. And so that's an interesting dynamic. But because of the tremendous crime that we had in the city, at one point, Jackson was listed as one of the most dangerous cities in America, right next to St. Louis, I believe, had that distinction for a long time. And so, the state legislature decided that, Jackson needed help in that way, and against the desires of most African Americans, well, I won't say most, of some African Americans, they instituted a law that created the Capitol Police in Jackson. So interesting dynamics there, but we find that there are all kinds of new organizations and new concerns and companies and philosophies designed on how you police a city. Now, I'm reminded that local cities normally don't want outside interference in their police department. Now, I get it that ICE is in Minnesota and that the governor of the state of Minnesota and the mayor of Minnesota does not want them in their area, but yet they are there because our president has said he is going to rid the city of crime. And so there's a tremendous debate going on about that, but I digress. I want to get back to Black history. I certainly want to say that we remember our fallen heroes. And those of us here at We Believe Digital, we're going to do our very best to bring you the tragedy, the tragic history, as well as the accomplishments and the achievements as they unfold. So before I close this evening, I want to say that the young men that gave their lives up in Philadelphia, Mississippi in 1968 or so, Goodman, Swarner, and Cheney, that were murdered in, I hate to even say it because it's just so horrible that, but anyway, they were murdered in Philadelphia, Mississippi. And so we have to remember their sacrifice. Now, two of those individuals were not African Americans. Two of those were white individuals, maybe of the Jewish persuasion. And so we certainly appreciate the role that white people have played in the liberation of African Americans throughout this country and throughout this world. We recognize the John Browns of the world, and we recognize that even the NAACP was founded with the assistance and the help of white people, and might have even had a white president at one time. So we recognize that we're not in this struggle alone for equality and achievement. So we give thanks to all of those that played a role. So that being said, I want to bring up Fannie Lou Hamer, a young lady that right here in Mississippi that went to the Democratic Party, the Freedom Riders, the Freedom Party, that said that they had to be seated at the Democratic Convention. And for that, tremendous suffering occurred. There were a lot of beatings. There were a lot of things that occurred when you dare to speak out. And so we want to recognize the contribution that they made. As Jesse Jackson said, and he coined the phrase, I want to keep hope alive. Jesse Jackson, gone today, a man that dedicated his life to the empowerment and the Black folks being free and improving their quality of life and dealing with their economy. I want to remind you of when you look at the picture of Martin Luther King on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel in Memphis, Tennessee, that Jesse was standing right there with him. His life was on the line every day. He didn't waver. He never showed fear. The gentleman stood tall, and he is to be remembered. We ought to keep hope alive. And so, but I'll remind you always that Dr. King said it does a man no good to have the rights to go into a restaurant to get a hamburger if he cannot afford the hamburger in the first place. It does you no good to have a right that you cannot access, that you cannot capture, that you cannot bring to fruition because your economy won't let you do it. One of our local hosts here on a radio show, Jim Evans, always says that the economy is not stupid. The economy, you have to make the economy work for you. You have to train our Black dollars, and you have to make them make some sense. And there are all kinds of organizations out here now that are designed to deal with that. After the tragedy in Los Angeles with Rodney King, after the tragedy with George Floyd, and we got all of these Black Lives Matter, we got all kinds of organizations designed to deal with improving race relations in the state of Mississippi. So I want to say that Jesse got the most out of his 84 years. I want to say that he didn't leave anything on the field. He left it all on the field. He didn't leave anything on the table. He gave life everything that he had, and he gave America everything that he had. His run for president signified that he wanted to demonstrate, not that he could win, but he wanted to demonstrate to other Black boys and girls that they too could aspire to be president. And from his work, we now have had Barack Obama, the first Black president in the United States of America, and then Kamala Harris with her vice presidency in the United States of America. So Black folk, we have done some amazing things, and we will do even greater things in days to come. Now, this has been Socrates Garrett Live in a special edition. Y'all stay safe out there. When you see a Black person, salute them, show them love, tell them how much you respect them, how much you appreciate them, and tell them to be all that you could be. If you're going to be a janitor, a broom sweeper, be the best broom sweeper there's ever been. Martin said, if you're going to be a ditch maker, dig ditches, be the best ditch digger that you could ever be. Keep the hope alive. Keep Black pride alive. Remember James Brown, I'm Black and I'm proud. Remember Jesse Jackson and his family at this difficult time. Pray for them, but most of all, never let hope die. Keep hope alive, and good night.